The world of mixed martial arts was on the edge of something massive. In a cold arena tucked away in the heart of Russia, the fierce warriors of M1 Global gathered. The air was thick with anticipation, a storm brewing under the fluorescent lights. It was the M1 Selection 2010 Finals, and this event was about to etch itself into the pages of history. The M1 Selection was a breeding ground for future stars, with the Army de Lance Army of Eastern European MMA talent converging to prove who would rise to the top. In the ring, there were no alliances, no friends, only warriors hungry for glory. And on this particular night, two warriors stood ready to write the next chapter of their careers. Khabib Nurmagomedov, the undefeated rising star from Dagestan, was preparing to face his opponent, Alexander Agafonov, a formidable fighter from Russia with the heart of a lion and the skills to match. The arena was alive, the roars of the crowd vibrating through the floorboards. In one corner of the cage, you could feel the intense focus of Khabib. His eyes were locked onto his opponent, each breath steady, as though time had slowed down for him. The nerves that others might feel before stepping into the cage seemed foreign to him. This was his domain, a place where his undefeated streak had already begun to speak volumes. In the opposite corner, Alexander Agafonov appeared calm, composed, but beneath the surface, there was a storm of energy. He was ready for this moment, to stake his claim as one of the best. His build was solid, his focus unwavering. But standing across from Khabib, he knew he was facing a force of nature. Fighters! Khabib Nurmagomedov. A man of few words, but his actions spoke louder than any microphone could capture. Born in the rugged mountains of Dagestan, Khabib was raised with a spirit that mirrored the harshness of his homeland. From the age of 6, he was already wrestling. The mat was where he felt at home, his movements so fluid and calculated that it was almost as if he had been born to fight. His fighting style was a mix of sambo, judo, and wrestling, with a suffocating control that could break even the toughest of opponents. By 2010, he was already 15-0, a rising star, unbeaten and with a calm that unnerved everyone who faced him. Agafonov, on the other hand, was known for his raw power and toughness. He might not have had the same polished technical skills as Khabib, but he made up for it with his strength, heart, and unyielding attitude. Every fight for Agafonov was a battle of wills, and he had made a name for himself by pushing his opponents to their limits. Moment before the fight. As the bell rang and the crowd roared, the atmosphere in the M1 arena was electric. The fighters touched gloves in a gesture of respect, but there was an understanding. This was war. Khabib's stance was low, almost predatory. His body language screamed control, and his eyes, laser-focused, never left his opponent. Alexander Agafonov was standing tall, chest out, with an expression that mixed determination and readiness. The tension was palpable. The referee signaled for the start, and the first few seconds were a blur of movement. Khabib closed the distance quickly, knowing full well that Agafonov's striking game had the power to end a fight in an instant. But Khabib had his own game plan, a plan forged in the wrestling mats and refined through countless hours of practice. The battle unfolds. Khabib wasted no time. He shot for a single leg, a move so smooth, it felt almost inevitable. Agafonov reacted instinctively, sprawling out to defend, trying to push Khabib off, but Khabib was already in too deep. Khabib's takedowns were something of a masterclass. No one had managed to stop them so far. Agafonov struggled, attempting to scramble to his feet, but Khabib was relentless. He transitioned from one position to another with the fluidity of a river carving through stone. There was nowhere Agafonov could go. With each movement, Khabib took more control. The crowd held their breath as Khabib moved to full-mount, a dominant position where he could rain down punches or set up a submission. But Khabib didn't rush. He waited methodically. He passed aside control, and Agafonov, his energy draining from him with each failed escape attempt, found himself trapped, unable to move. It was a classic Khabib sequence, one that would be repeated countless times throughout his career. The finish. With less than 2 minutes remaining in the first round, Khabib saw his opening. Agafonov had exposed a slight vulnerability in his posture, and Khabib, ever so patient, moved swiftly, slipping into a triangle choke. In a flash, Khabib's legs locked around Agafonov's neck, tightening with precision. The choke was deep, and Agafonov's face contorted as he fought for breath, his arms flailing in a last-ditch effort to escape. But Khabib had already taken full control. There was no escape. In the audience, you could hear the collective intake of breath as the Russian crowd, once so loud, fell into stunned silence. The fight was over. Agafonov's arms dropped to the mat, his will broken by the suffocating grip of Khabib's submission. The referee stepped in, and Khabib was declared the winner via submission, triangle choke, at 1:53 of the first round. The aftermath. Khabib stood motionless, his face impassive as ever. His hand was raised in victory, but it wasn't about the glory for him. For Khabib, it was always about the journey. His respect for Agafonov was evident as he gave him a nod before walking to his corner, where his coaches embraced him in quiet acknowledgement of another flawless victory. Khabib's undefeated streak had reached 16-0, and the world began to take notice of the man who was dominating the lightweight ranks. For Agafonov, this was not the end but a harsh reminder of the level required to compete with the best. He had been overwhelmed, and in the end, the triangle choke was just another example of Khabib's suffocating ground game that no one had been able to solve.